Nu komt hij gewoon niet opdagen.
Ja, waarschijnlijk.
Ja, so what's gonna happen? Gaat hij inbellen of zo? Of je komt
Normaal. Die heeft dezelfde link als jullie, dus normaal klikt hij daarop en komt hij hier binnen.
Dit is een podcast op wetenschap gericht. Wij zijn zelden van onwaarheden beticht. En wij zijn nog nooit voor corruptie gezwicht. Dit is het Nerdland.
Dara Ó Briain.
Overzicht.
Met uw gastheer Lieven Scheire.
Oh yeah.
A very good day to all our listeners. Welcome to a new episode of the Nerdland podcast, and a pretty special one, as you can hear at this strange language that I'm speaking now that is related to Dutch, but not quite Dutch. This has everything to do with our central guest today, Dara Ó Briain.
How are you? Pleasure to be here. Delighted.
Well,
thank you for. I mean, you could have done it in any of the languages, the Benelux languages. I would have been able to master it. I'd be fine. If you want to do it in Flemish, it's fine. It's actually slightly patronizing that you presumed I wouldn't be able to do that.
Oké, geen probleem. Dan schakelen we onmiddellijk over.
Okay. All right. Reel it in there.
But I believe your French is pretty good, isn't it?
No. I have school French. So
okay.
it wouldn't be able to sustain a introspective conversation. I speak Irish, but that is of no use in this situation. But I was kind of raised half through Irish and half through English, so so I speak that fluently. But yeah, no. Let's look, for the sake of that listener who doesn't speak any of these languages. Thank you for making the concession.
We're doing it for them. So maybe a quick round. Who is present here? We have Jeroen Bart. Jeroen is a computer scientist, did a PhD on graphics in computer games. So
Yes.
lots to talk about there. Then we have Stephanie Dehennin. Stephanie is an illustrator of science books and a public speaker about science communication. Special interest is neurology, so maybe that will lead us somewhere here. Hetty Helsmoortel, life scientist, PhD, was a cancer researcher, and Hetty quit her job just before the lockdown to become a full-time science communicator.
Yep.
Timing. Comedy is timing, my friend.
Yes, she had some nervous weeks, but everything is going fine. Bart van Peer, we studied physics together. Well, maybe I could say Bart studied physics, and now he does a TV show, a bit of a satire TV show on the news of the last week. That might sound
Mug's
familiar.
game. You'll never make a dime, my friend. You'll never make a penny off that.
I've noticed.
Yeah. And then we have Els. Els is our sound engineer, recording everything, but she's really into Doctor Who and a few other fandoms. So maybe if those topics pop up, we will hear her wonderful voice, because Els has an amazing radio voice, and she's never asked by the radio to actually speak on it. Which is strange.
I'm a behind-the-scenes kind of girl.
Very
but
important.
you're right. It's mellifluous, and there are many tonal elements there. That's good. That works very well, that voice. It is always weird when you meet. I know a couple of people who, when you meet them in real life, who have that, who just have, because who just get tapped by the wand and have a ridiculously good voice, but then aren't using it, and it's like, oh please. It's like when you meet a hand model and they go, I've seen, this is what the hands of a hand model. You go, wow, that hands can look like that. It's incredible. So yes.
Yeah, her voice is
of a hand model. What?
wasted behind the mixing table.
Yes.
So for those Boeotians that are listening now who do not know who Dara Ó Briain is, you studied physics, so that is your science connection. You're a comedian now. And I think you do both science communication, books, TV shows, and the stand-up comedy shows.
Yes, very much so. I did maths and physics, really. To be honest, the maths always kind of gets a lower ranking for some reason, but it was a combination, but maths and theoretical physics. And then ran our way to the circus, became a comedian, probably best known for shows like Mock the Week and the BBC or Live at the Apollo. Although I do tour your part of the world, and so I do bring my touring shows over there. But at the same time, have a kind of a fun sideways thing of for years I did Stargazing live with Professor Brian Cox, and now I also write lots of kids books about space, which are on the shelf behind me here. So I have that I've been allowed to indulge that other side of my personality as well, which is great.
Yeah, well, so I've seen you in Antwerp here. I'm sure you've visited Holland too, Amsterdam, do shows there, so people can come see you live. I remember the last time I saw you live in Antwerp was Crowd Tickler, and the theme was the brain. The brain was kind of central in the comedy show. So
it did, yes, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, really, it was. I mean, you have someone who with a genuine passion for neurology. You'd have learned nothing from it. I would put it that way. It was very, very superficial. Although I did get to tell the story of Phineas Gage, which is a great spike to the head.
Yeah,
and they notice personality changes, and you're going, you think? So it really was. Wow, I'd be surprised if there weren't slight personality changes, like a metal spike shot through his head, and
yeah.
And then somebody sent me a photograph later. Somebody who attended the show sent me a photo, the only existing photograph of Phineas Gage, in which he's holding the spike.
It's the one with his one eye closed, I think.
He is, and he has a kind of let's say a gruff manner in the photograph, but that is probably typical of probably more to do the exposure time of 19th century photography. Everyone's supposed to have a very serious face on them. It was an easier expression to keep, apparently, for a while the photos developed. But he's still holding the spike, which is bizarre to me that he was never. It's not clear whether he was reunited with the spike just before the photograph or whether he had the spike all the time. He'd always kept the spike as a kind of a memento of that hideous accident. Is that a thing?
There was a murder attempt in Belgium a couple of years ago where a secret lover shot the husband through the face with a crossbow in some act of subtlety, I think. And that guy survived as well. They shared the hospital ride to the hospital, the murderer and the guy who got like an arrow in his face.
Wow.
Yeah, beautiful.
Very much, by the way, attempted murderer.
Yeah, attempted.
If you're in the ambulance with the person you've attempted to murder, you've not succeeded in your murder. But did that guy keep the crossbow spike? Because presumably it did some huge facial damage. No,
actually, I saw a picture of him a year ago, and it was perfectly fine. He had a scar, and that was it. Wow. But it was a spike they used for hunting whales, so it's like it's more of a harpoon-y kind of spike.
Well, adding insult to injury there.
Isn't it? You know, body shaming a man as you attempt to murder him. It's bad enough that you're sleeping with his wife and then you go, you gained a few pounds, by the way.
Because the secret lover was the owner of a diving shop. And I guess they just went, okay, what do we have here?
Oh, my God.
To, subtly murder someone.
I could hammer him to death with a sunto repeatedly, or I could put him in that small glass tank that we keep to demonstrate the pressure thing. And that was what he went for.
They practiced on wooden pallets in the garden. Just casually, just practicing my harpoon on wooden pallets in the garden. Nothing.
No one knows that. Yeah. They're like, what are you doing? I'm just out in the garden, firing into a pallet.
They shared an ambulance. It's a small space. We all know how awkward an elevator can be. That must have been the most awkward ride.
You've got a conversation starter already. Because
basically got hook, line, and sinker
sticking out of his head. Like at some point, is there a moment where he's going, oh well, look. Anyway, your wife and I feel this is the time for a change.
Let's move on. Yeah,
but did he keep? I wonder, did he keep that? Does he still have the harpoon? Or
surely there's a film in this. He must have sold the film rights, so we'll find out soon.
But how the Phineas managed to hold on to it for so long is an interesting, or why somebody felt, well, I better keep that back and give it to him, because I'm not sure that's a policy in hospitals at the moment, that if you become impaled or something, or do they, if you get shot and there's fragments of bullet inside you, will they give you the fragments of bullet?
I think they give it as some kind of warning, like, oh, if this thing would have hit your artery.
Yeah. Exactly. Like, oh, it was only X amount away from your aorta, and therefore, I have to do a knee operation. On my left knee, I have a very bad left knee, long-standing thing. And
you used to be a warrior, but then you took an arrow.
I took an arrow to the knee.
Yeah, that's
excellent Skyrim reference.
I didn't want to do it. I thought you're taking.
It was tantalizing you all with the Skyrim thing. Sorry. But I have to have. I have a problem with my femur. But there's a hole in the base of my femur, and so the impact point of the thing is all a bit frayed, and so I have to think of an osteotomy. So I went to the doctor very recently. This all has happened in a few weeks. And he said, well, you have a hole in your femur, so we're going to break your fibia. Tibia? The one below.
Tibia,
the one
tibia.
below. And you're kind of going, why are you breaking the other bone? Is it a warning? That's a nice knee you got here.
You're not supporting your friends good enough.
Yeah.
But I think it's like when you're riding a bicycle and the chain comes off on the small peg. That's it. You have to take it off the big one to put it on the small one.
Okay.
So maybe it's that kind of thing. So
There is actually there is a reason. They're actually going to open it, and then they bend it. They kind of open it, the thing, and they bend it in order to create the. He used to keep going. You physics. The moment you have a moment of pressure in the part of your knee, and they're shifting it to the center. It's moved to the bit that's hurting, so they're moving it across. And it should buy me 10 years. But
it's a vector exercise.
Totally, it is actually. Yeah. And so, but the thing is, there'll be at some point there'll be a titanium plate and 3 bolts in my fibia, and I keep forgetting if it's fibia or tibia, and I don't think it's necessary for me to have an X-ray, but I want an X-ray, and I'm not sure to what extent, because why would I not want they'll take some of them out a bit later when it all heals. And so for that window of time when you have
Wolverine powers.
Essentially, yeah, I've adamantine legs, and so I want an image of it, like because I want to post it. So I'm not sure to what extent you're allowed to do that. And just discretionarily go, can you do a shot of my knee?
Or just go like, it kind of hurts, but like on the inside. I think you need to look at it.
I think you need a picture. I think you need a picture of this, and you need to give me a copy of the picture.
Something I forgot to mention about Stephanie, she used to be on the ambulance service. So picking up people and
picking up people.
Yeah, picking up people in all kinds of states.
What you do, what you do in your own time is fine. It seems that's a bad thing to do to vulnerable people, to go, oh, maybe we should get a drink when they remove.
All of this is over.
No, clearly this man is sleeping with my wife, and he harpooned me in the head, and you go, so you're single?
You should have offered a photo service in the ambulance for people posing with the cool stuff.
But presumably, Stephanie, there are times where you had to pick people up at car crashes or whatever, where people, both people who, like the person who instigated the crash and the person who got hurt, were in the same ambulance.
No, that never happened. In Antwerp, we have several ambulances.
More than one.
Well, I'm delighted to hear.
Or double deckers.
Yeah. The competing ambulances looking for who's a goodie. There's a goodie ambulance and a baddie ambulance.
Actually, there is.
Oh, really?
Yeah. I'm not supposed to say this, but there's two big firms that are competing a little bit for the best, who has the most spots. And of course, I was with the good ambulance service.
Of course.
The other one, let's say you don't want to really be picked up by them if you have something serious.
Fair enough. Okay. Well, I more meant in the case of that there's an ambulance for the crasher and an ambulance for the crashee. Right. Yeah, rather than that's a goodie and baddie. But I accept that they're dubious services.
Good guy, bad guy. Yeah. Why not?
By the way, Antwerp is intriguing me because Antwerp was among the darkest gigs. Do you remember that? There was a very and I remember chiding the audience.
I remember that. I was there.
Yeah, it was
someone. You asked if anyone has ever saved a life.
That's exactly.
And there was this one guy who didn't read the room, and he started about the great disaster of Pukkelpop. And you could feel no one said a thing, but you could feel everyone go like, don't mention it.
And the thing is, I had never even heard of the event, but I could sense with the first words he said. I was at a festival or a concert, whatever it was. Suddenly, frost, the entire room went frosty, the whole thing, whatever. And I had to stop it. I remember going, is this a thing that was enormous? But let's not do it here. And there was occasionally you'd have, because it was a routine I did regularly about, is there a time that you saved a life, whatever? And occasionally it would go dark, where people with somebody would say, well, this terrible thing happened, and I pulled one of the people out of the water or whatever. And it was like, no, but there was a woman in Dublin once who said, I worked in a wildlife park called Fota. It's on an island in Cork, and a river island, say rather than a sea island. And there's a lovely safari park there. There's a big stretch of ground and a lovely safari park. And she said there was a baby kangaroo had separated from its mother and fell into one of the streams and was shivering in the cold or whatever. And I had to go in and take the baby kangaroo out of the water and get it wrapped up in a blanket, whatever. And the room melted at the story. And it's gorgeous, right? And then I'm going, oh, blah, blah, blah. And I turned away. And as I turned away, she goes, died later, of course. Kill the room. Absolutely stone dead. Kill the room. Yeah. So there was that. Yeah, Antwerp had that guy doing that particular weird moment. But then again, there was just an undercurrent of you were very happy with the harpoons in the head type stories. It was just there was an interesting darkness to the place.
You also don't want Phil Collins in the room when you ask that question. Oh, I could have saved the guy from drowning.
Again.
But now you're doing a kind of a podcast tour. This is your international podcast week in a way.
It is, yeah, it is ridiculous. Yeah, I have because I put out a thing to explain to people at home. I put out a tweet basically saying, look, before Zoom ends, because next week we start work basically.
In England. Let's
sorry, apologies. Yes, yeah. Sorry, I'm not sure what stage you are. Ireland, I think we're around about the same stage as you, which are things still very much shut where you are?
Well, vaccination is much ahead in the UK, but our numbers are finally going down, but very slowly, and we're waiting for vaccination to really catch on to get in the same situation that England is in now.
Yeah, so I think Ireland is a very similar situation, but Ireland being incredibly cautious about letting any drinking, even outdoor drinking, nothing's going to happen until June. Okay. And I did a radio interview a couple of weeks ago with an Irish broadcaster, and I posted the picture of myself of getting the jab, and he said, "Look, you got the vaccination," and I said, "I did, but today I've got a sore head and I'm woozy and I just feel well." And he goes, "Oh, right, is that because of vaccination?" "No, I've just been out drinking." It was just, you can hear his temperature go, "Do you mind? Like, none of us are allowed to do this now." Like, oh, it's great. Honestly, guys, I'm kind of bored of it. I'm out so often in London these days. So it is the real sense here of it stepping out of it. Like, so work begins again. Like, we do Mock the Week starting next week, and there are gigs and there's outdoor gigs and there's a thing. So I kind of went, I must do this before we stop doing Zoom, or before we kind of walk away from Zoom entirely. Just who wants to have a chat? And so great, lovely to talk to you. We've been talking on and off for years, Lieven. But there was an Icelandic photographer who I spoke to yesterday. There's a science podcast that Mark Kirshen does called Probably Science in LA, and like a thing called a Willosophy, a comedy podcast I did last night with Melbourne. And so the time difference alone is fun to be doing that. And it's quite nice. Although I have to say, with respect to all of you, the one I'm secretly really looking forward to is next Wednesday. I'm speaking to, I don't even know the name of it, but the podcast of Rosenborg, the Trondheim football team supporters podcast. I know nothing about Rosenborg really, but I've had a couple of great nights out in Trondheim, and they've sent me a jersey with O Briain written on the back for the podcast. You're going, lovely. Like this, you're always doing merch.
You guys, we should have.
Didn't you do? Did you? Just bad mouthing you to all the other podcasts now.
Give us half an hour. Give us half.
We'll bang something together. We'll send you a PDF or something.
Listen for the drone in the garden. But there is one piece of textile that we probably will send you. This is normally we do science news. We go over the things that we picked up in the last month in science. We have one item that is always in the podcast. It is called the Musk news. Elon Musk news. What happened in Muskland this month? And
really, he gives and gives, doesn't he?
And there's kind of two groups amongst the podcasters. There's Team Musk. I'm pretty enthusiastic. I think he's doing amazing things. And then Jeroen is the leader of Musk Skepsis.
Oh, you have your t-shirt.
And so he will always go like, "Nah, he didn't do it. The engineers did it, and he's not paying them enough." And he's being an asshole on Twitter and things like that. So what do you think?
Well, I own a Tesla. I think I own the one with the gull wing doors, and I think it's a great car. Right? It's a fantastic piece of engineering. It's like driving a phone. Because there's must remember to charge it, and it does things, and it'll not boot up, and you're going, what the fuck are you doing? You're a car, why are you not booting up? And so it does all these things. One thing about it though, we've now gone, because we've two cars, both of us working, so I got an I-Pace, which is a Jaguar electric car, so we've gone totally electric in the last while. And bizarrely, on the Jaguar, it'll say you have a range of 225 miles, and you'll drive for 50 miles, and the range will say you have a range of 175 miles. And if you own a Tesla, that is mind-blowing because the Tesla range number is just a random number between 2 and 300 that there's no relation to the journey you're making. And obviously under idea, you're going, how much? I'm driving 60 miles an hour. I've got the radio on. That's draining 120 miles off the battery. It's a weird approximation thing. And you can tell that when you actually go to the route planner thing, the route planner thing has the obligation to actually give you proper information to go, no, you won't get there on this. So the route planner is using real information, whereas a screen is not using real information. And that is, it's constantly in your head. It's in your head. Like, I know they've got a network and stuff, but it's a faint headache of, Jesus, am I going to get home? Because I've only got 70 miles on this and I've got to make a 10-mile journey. And I'm not sure what that is in Tesla miles. So they're
Tesla
not
miles.
They're not there yet on that stuff. And so maybe they just don't want to admit that actually the range is 180 rather than 300. But it's incredibly infuriating. But I almost bought the Tesla 3 as a second car, but I just felt it would be tragic to have two cars. But it looked too much like I'm a fan of the thing. And the SpaceX stuff, I'll flip it. Yes, great in terms of the relanding of all that stuff, but the dots over the sky
Starlink.
Is as a stargazer.
Oh, bane of my life. Absolute bane of my life, the thing. And the first time you see that wagon train going over the thing, it's kind of impressive. But then all we do is long exposures of stuff, and I've yet to have it happen, but like they'll either appear as white lines across it, or slightly more irritating even, they said, well, we're going to paint them in non-reflective paint, so you won't be able to see them, except you'll see this line cutting across whatever thing you're supposed to be photographing. And so, not just for my hobby, but I think generally for any kind of astronomy, earthbound astronomy, I can't see how that is.
Did you, just out of curiosity, did you used to watch iridium flares? Like the flaring satellites that?
No, I didn't. No. Sorry.
Okay. Well, iridium was a kind of a satellite, and the antenna was a big mirror. And so after a while, they noticed that when they were in the right position, you would get a very bright flare of 3 seconds. I mean, brighter than Sirius or any other star.
Yeah.
And it was kind of that you had apps so that you could see if I'm at this spot at that exact time watching that corner of the sky. But there's nice YouTube clips. They're all taken out of the sky now. They have new satellites, but there's nice YouTube clips of this.
Oh God! Okay, no, I did. No. My actual active astronomy was a lockdown thing. I mean, because I did 10 years of getting photographs from probes. So there's no need, you'd be there on the show and you're going, oh, I wonder how Jupiter's looking. Why don't we find out from something that's 10 miles away from it? And that's the way we're looking at things. But I took up astronomy properly when I was in the lockdown, and I got a telescope, and then I've fallen down the astrophotography hole now. So I'm, my house is constantly receiving tubes, different size tubes that connect to other size tubes to connect different type things, the other type things. It's a world of tiny M48 to M62 to T2 filter changes and stuff. So there's a lot of that going on. But I'm the weirdest knock-on effect of it is that I curse the sky regularly, which is probably not a healthy thing, because I walk out today, for example, really clear, beautiful day in London, but it wasn't beautiful last night. After I carried everything out and set it all up, it was cloudy. And so I wake up and I curse this. Wow, where were you at 11 o'clock last night when I was trying to get a nebula or something?
Thanks to Musk, it will be forever cloudy when all the satellites are in the air.
40,000 satellites. It'll just be a crisscross web of stuff, like whatever.
A friend of mine said, those hobby astronomers, you can just filter that out. You know where they are, the satellites. You can just filter them out of your photography.
You know what? I suppose there will be an addition to, because it's all for apps. It's all there's all various kind of technical software that you can use to build to get your network together. I presume if I can plate solve, as they say, for location things, then probably yes. But there's also it's a hobby based on like being a pixel, not even a pixel off in your long exposures, whatever. So this thing just scarring across it, like it's what are you going to do?
And how about the rockets, the starships, the tests? Do you follow any of that?
Yeah, I do. I have a tendency I tend to see them retrospectively, rather than I'm off the mailing list and then I just see the reaction to them afterwards. But and look, that's incredible. It reorienting stuff and dropping down is an astonishing thing. And look, I'm enjoing this race. I received the email from the Amazon one.
Yeah,
Blue Origin.
To sign up.
Blue Origin.
To sign up to bid for the first seat. I suspect
Really?
it'll. Yeah, you can. I suspect I won't still be in the race. I'm going to send in a cursory. Oh, well, look, what's it worth to me? 100 quid. There we go. Because obviously it's going to go for 60 million to somebody, like the things used to. But it's they still send out an email going, you can buy the first seat in July, June or July, as far as I know.
Yeah, 20th of July. It's the anniversary of the Apollo moon landing, actually.
Oh, really?
Yes,
Okay, so let's go for that famous 52nd anniversary that we always celebrate. But
That one.
I do feel slightly like it was a game when I used to do scuba diving a lot. There were points where you'd scuba, say in the Red Sea, and there would be snorkelers as well. And I had a game where I would flip over and swim underneath the snorkelers, like 10 meters down, and just wave up at them hey, how's that? Am I blocking your view? And I swim off.
You were kind of the Starlink satellite of snorkelers.
Very much, and it was very dickish as a move to go. Hey, how are you enjoying the fish from up there? I'm just going to go down now and swim down. It does feel like you're paying a lot of money to be the equivalent of snorkeling. Whereas if you meet actual astronauts, you can't go, oh, I touched your arena briefly in a parabolic arc and then come back down again. I also don't think you'd ever, or whatever the mental thing is, that you'd never get over the idea of how much this is costing per second to do.
Well, we must say Hetty is taking the affordable route. She has just subscribed to the new ESA astronaut. Well, the ESA needs new astronauts, and Hetty is one of the 10,000 candidates.
Excellent.
Hoping to get to the next round, actually. Yeah.
Yep, I am. Waiting till the 28th of May, then the process closes, and then we'll see if I move on to the next round. But yeah.
And so how much of a winnowing process is there?
Last time, 12 years ago, they had, I think, approximately 10,000 subscriptions, and 10%, like 800, 900 people, went to the first round. So there is a 1 in 10 chance that I proceed to the next round. But I check a lot of boxes. I have a PhD. I'm a woman. I'm between 27 and 37. So
science communicator.
Communication. Yeah, that's what they're looking
absolutely.
for. So yeah.
Can you fly? Have you ever done any is stuff like that still on the list at all? That's not
no. You don't have to be a pilot or an Air Force pilot. That's of course it gives you an advantage, but it's not necessary to have flown.
But what I've noticed from what they're asking for is, of course, that astronauts are kind of super trained lab scientists. So the fact that you worked in a lab, Hetty, and that you have been working with cells and cell lines,
and animals,
I think is
is
a huge advantage. I would think, and Hetty also.
Look, that's fantastic. Well, good luck with that. That's great.
Thank you.
To go for. Yeah, no, it's interesting. The only reason I say pilots, by the way, not in a kind of a 1950s Chuck Yeager kind of a way. Tim Peake was a helicopter pilot. So that's kind of the model, the one I met most recently. And Hadfield was a jet pilot, whatever. But because you're going up in groups, and they're larger groups, obviously it doesn't need to be 3 pilots, 4 pilots at any given time.
No, preferably not, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. Look, that'd be amazing. With a long-term aim, hopefully, of getting up to. Will ISS still be there in a number of years? What's their plan?
I don't think so. So ISS is coming down somewhere before 2030. Yeah. The next space station is planned around the moon, so it would circle the moon instead of the Earth.
Yeah, a lunar space station.
Wow.
Yeah. And the Chinese have just launched their very own space station, and ESA astronauts will be going there too. I think Samantha Cristoforetti, Italian astronaut, is already in training with the Chinese space program to go to the Chinese space station. So lots of places to go, Hetty, if you finally make it to space.
But I want to be the first woman on the moon, so
she's going to be American.
That'd be fantastic.
She's going to be American.
There's a lot of checkbook stuff here going on.
I'm afraid. Yeah.
And look, if it saves you having to learn Russian, that'd be great as well.
Yeah. You are when you receive your training, Russian is a very, very big part of it. Yeah.
And it saves you the ceremony of those Russian astronauts, cosmonauts, of course.
Oh,
who have to like pee against the bus and look at that long Siberian science fiction movie for some reason.
Oh yeah, that's right.
I didn't know about that. I knew about the peeing on the bus thing. I mean, obviously, I write science books for kids. I obviously knew about that. That's one of the details they absolutely adore. They want anything involving wee and poo. They're thrilled about. But you have to sit through like Solaris or something.
It's an older Soviet movie that is about aspiring to space. It's very like Cold War influenced, and apparently you have to sit through that on a movie night before you go. So. Yeah, you can skip that, Hetty. We're eliminating all your competitors.
Yeah, but I actually had the same thing because I was interviewed yesterday about the Blue Origin thing. I mean, you spent 10 minutes in space or something, and they asked me, how much are you willing to bid? And I answered, actually, I don't know, nothing, because I want the real stuff. I want...
Yes.
Yeah. I want to be an astronaut. I want to research. I want to broaden the boundaries of our knowledge, not just having a 10-minute ride in space. So I have the same thing.
Just going
I'll take the 10-minute ride.
I'll take the 60 million. So then everybody's happy, and we can.
I'm gonna opt for Prime, so I get like 15 minutes early.
As a matter of interest, do you even cross the threshold of being astronaut? Like whatever. What is it? Is it the 100?
The common line.
Kilometers?
Yeah.
You get over that line, do you?
Yeah. For 10 minutes.
Right, for 10 minutes.
Yeah, so Blue Origin is just the most efficient way to be technically an astronaut. Just going up, it has windows on all sides. It will make a full 360-degree circle, so you see all the surroundings, and then you come down again. It's the Jeff Bezos attempt to be Elon Musk again, I think.
I'll just come out of the toilet. Did I miss it?
Presumably there are people who will be vomiting. Because they'll.
Oh right.
Yeah, I mean, they'll do the 0G flight as part of their training, as it were. So they find out. But we did a 0G for the BBC once in Florida, the parabolic arc flight. Yeah. And myself and the producer were so excited, and when it started, she instantly just froze with nausea and had to be. Just basically carried back to the back on one of the dips, carried to the back of the plane and sat down. So she was just wiped out completely. And it happens to a certain percentage of people and that would be the wrong place. You've been 60 million to find out the minute you hit zero gravity that your body can't handle it and you're there heaving.
Yeah, Tim Peake calls it the Vomit Comet, right?
Yeah. The Vomit Comet. There was a guy who was because the one we were on was a research one, so there was loads of people who were laying out their gossamer thin solar panels and on the floor to check how they were all operating in the 30 seconds of 0G. But in the middle of it all, this very busy flight. So it wasn't the one where we're all gathered together and doing Superman and things like that. There was a guy went past us, and I only found out afterwards because I met him afterwards, and he had vomit all over his top because he had reacted really badly as well. And so the team who had done what they'd done is they had said to him, right, just curl up into a ball. The team being the people who are on it all the time. And they walk around like the kids on the waltzer and a fun fair who work on they know. Yeah, okay, I'm going to feel heavy and I'm going to feel light now, but I do so often.
Very top of the food chain behavior.
Totally, absolutely. Yeah. And so they basically rolled him into a ball and pushed him down the plane, and he floated down the plane in 0G. And then one of them caught him at the back and unrolled him.
Oh my god!
He was kind of a milieu with his own puke inside.
Essentially, it was all gathered into one little thing, and then. Yeah.
I must say, Bart also did a 0G flight. Bart and I worked on a science show together, and Bart went in the air to do the parabolic flight too.
It's very relatable. There was I experienced the same thing. The plane has two zones. It's kind of a dead zone where people who are not willing to do the next cycle are strapped into their seats. No, 3 zones actually. Then there's a zone for all kinds of scientific experiments. And then there's a free float zone, which is kind of small if you compare to the images you see on YouTube. The fun with everyone in the plane. It's a very small zone. But they also announce constantly, as you probably can confirm, they constantly announce we're going into injection right now, and now we're coming out of injection. And so I was at the wrong place at the wrong time, And I was in the research zone with very serious experiments when the plane was going into injection. And so, as you said, you have these guys who walk around like on the plane like there's nothing happening. They're up straight, they can handle themselves, and you're going all directions. You can't maneuver, you can't control yourself. And so this guy really had to pull me down. So he stood there like on the ferry. And he pulled me down every time again. Yeah, stay here. You're disturbing the experiments. Stay here.
Oh, I almost landed on one. I remember having I came down and had to suddenly, you occasionally see a footballer and he's about to land on another footballer and they, have to quickly change their legs and stamp on somebody. I almost crushed somebody's delicate gossamer thin wings on their solar flare thing, but because it suddenly was like, okay, now we're going the other way. The other interesting thing is there are very few windows in the plane.
Yep.
And we're going to why are all the windows, or they're blacked out anyway, the windows. And he said, because people find it disturbing because the landscape suddenly sweeps up and down, but the wings shoot up, and just metallurgically, you're not reassured by the sight of the wings bending upwards and then coming back down again. It's actually a bit disturbing. So we just too scary for people.
Yeah, but speaking about crushing, I also noticed that when you're going up, you're experiencing at least 2 Gs.
Yeah.
So you feel this enormous weight crushing. Well, it's actually your own weight twice crushing upon you. But as long as you're in the seats, that's okay. But if you're, again, in this free-floating zone, you have to make sure you're in a comfortable position, because one of the times the plane was taking up and I wasn't in a comfortable position. I had my leg underneath myself, and so I was crushing my own leg with my own weight while the plane went up. So I was so happy when we finally came off the ground and were able to free float again. But it's a marvelous experience.
Yeah, it's I would say I'd say bang for your buck. It's probably better than the parabolic into space thing, because it's longer. You get 7.5 minutes of free float. You're in a kind of environment where you can float around and do things there, and so you get the full experience of it. But it's not 6 months of training. It's not $60 million. And you don't see it. They gotta give you that. But it is a thing to do.
I'm not sure they will receive a 0G flight as part of their training, because they're expected 2 days prior to liftoff.
Oh, Jesus,
yes. And also because I looked at the bidding thing. There's also a statement that they won't check your medical situation.
My God! Yeah,
if you think you have something heart related or whatever, you should see your own
if you think
GP on your own costs. Yeah, and so I'm not sure there will be a lot of training.
It's Amazon.
Involved.
It's Amazon. No union and no union for the clients.
Yeah.
But that's so dangerous. People can die.
Yep.
Presumably, yes. And
people will die.
People who are of an age where they've accrued the 60 million, and this has been a childhood dream since Apollo, are going to go up and do these things. Yeah. But you can see. By the way, he died as he wanted to. He died in space. You kind of.
He died as he wanted to, like vomiting his way towards the Jeff Bezos cabin. Yeah,
landing heavily onto his cranium when he misjudged the parabolic arc. Yeah,
rolled in a bowl filled with his own vomit. Yeah. Maybe let's fill the last minutes we have together with some serious nerdiness. You have studied physics and mathematics.
Yes.
Is there any, let's say math, because we mostly talk about physics, but let's say math. Is there some favorite theory, like Fourier analysis or the Emily Noether theorem, something that you really like?
The ones I remember being insane for the aridness of them, there were things I loved. I love differential geometry. I love that kind of intuitive. I love relativity, so I loved all that. There was I toyed with the idea of, in my finals, answering the question on the Freinet-Serre theorems in French, just for the hell of it, because there's very little. Voici les équations, and so you've done it. But so I like all that stuff, like whatever curves and space. Whereas something like group theory was the one I always quote to people is, I think, called Syloff's theorem, or Seelof theory in group theory, for the reason that doing a degree in mathematics, and I'm not sure if I've done this, is basically like being a monk. You're transcribing. There's a lot of transcribing. A man generally stands up at a blackboard, slowly goes through the lines of argument, and you just write them down. And if you miss a lecture, all you're doing is writing down stuff you don't understand. And there were entire years of my academic career where I very quickly slipped a few hours behind the what we were doing, but had to go attend just to write all the stuff down. But Seelof theorem, which I didn't about diffeomorphisms on different groups, these kind of collections of objects that are symmetric or not symmetric or whatever and operations, and it was incredibly. I couldn't even remember the actual thing of it now, but it took 3 hours of writing it down. It was 24 pages of proof. Particular
Bart and I, we went to a keynote that was given by a professor that used to teach us mathematics, and now so he's retired and he does fun things. He had a very interesting keynote on the fact that the golden ratio is kind of a myth. It's not real. It was kind of romanticized in I think architecture. But so he was given the lecture. We had fun times afterwards. We had a beer. We have our jobs now. We have fun memories of studying, but very hard work. And so during this fun time, he just mentioned, "Well, I've looked at the course that I was teaching you these many years ago. I must say, looking back at it, it was just too much. You were young people. You didn't have to spend all this time memorizing these things." And we were like, really? Now you tell us? Because it's a lot of writing down and memorizing.
It was so dense. His courses were so dense. It was the one how do you say, all kinds of proof. And the stories he made with all those proofs, they were so specific. The manner of reasoning was so specific, and
he was passionate.
Everybody died on that one.
But you even did a TV show on mathematics, which I think is maybe an international first. The School of Hard Sums.
We did School of Hard Sums. It actually wasn't, because it was based on a Japanese show. Give you the format. The idea it was that. I, as the enthusiast, would attempt a problem beside two comedians who knew nothing about it, and they would try just to hammer the thing out. They would send them off in a video, and they'd make a video of them trying to just solve the problem. Whereas I would go, well, actually, what you're trying to do, I suppose, is you're trying to. There was one really, really lovely one about essentially a fog of war problem, which is that there are two battleships and they're this amount of distance apart, and one of them is chasing the other. It's faster than it, but they're in fog. So how would you find it? Is there any way that any path you could take that you would definitely find the other ship? And it turns out to be very easy. Just a spiral, just an elliptic spiral, or sorry, an exponential spiral goes round and round, and that no matter what direction the other ship is going in, you go to where the ship was, you go to its starting point, and then you do a spiral. And no matter what direction the ship is going in, you will at some point hit it if you're going faster than it. If you just go out and out and out in a spiral. It was really, really neat little things like that. And there were a load of students alongside who were also first year, second year, who were offering a bit more intellectual heft. And it was a fun, silly thing to do, but it was based on a Japanese television program made by Takeshi Kitano, who did Battle Royale.
Castle?
Yes. Hang on, wait. Hang on. I mean, Battle Royale and Takeshi Kitano, who did Beat Takeshi, So he came up with this show for Japanese television, and his version was insane. It was like everything you think about Japanese television. There was a town crier for no particular reason. The two students were every image you've seen of two young Japanese girls in exactly that outfit. That's the school uniform, and the two of them were working away in the thing, like whatever. So and then there was somebody else trying to work, and then he was gruffly in the middle of it trying to do the whole thing. And there was like 7 other presenters. There was everything, and that Japanese information in every corner of the screen thing. But an enormously popular show in Japan. And then we did a version of it for, I think, one of these channels called Dave, who basically came to me looking for a comedy show, and I said, no, why don't we do this ridiculous thing?
But that's something that I find increasingly difficult, is to get science on TV. I mean, podcast is kind of our free zone, and we can do what we want. And so on TV, well, everything has to be for everyone. So mathematics on TV, I wouldn't know how to start selling it to the networks here. But there's another thing that I'm really interested in is the fact that you did a video game show. So video gaming is huge. But I think, as you mentioned in one of your shows, the strange thing is when you talk about sports, many people are a fan, and the other people still know what it is. If you talk about video games, you have the people who are into it, and the other people have no clue. It's a blind spot. But you did manage to put it on linear television.
I did. We did, and in fact, there's a routine I got, which is possibly the best one routine I have. It was about video games on the grounds that, finally there was enough tropes that are common enough that people get them. I mean, it is a thing about video games that it withholds content. So in other words, people won't have seen the bit in that game because they haven't got to that bit in the game. Yeah. Like whatever. Like I've never seen The Revenant, but I know there's a bear attack in The Revenant. Mm-hmm. I don't know what happens in the latter stages of many different video games. Like because they don't percolate into the culture. But we did a thing which is basically just people playing games, and it was a bit retro in our choice. It was called Dara Go 8-Bit. It was based on two guys who had an Edinburgh show where they basically just brought people on and you sit on a couch and you play video games against each other. And so it's perfect with comedians because all of the banter comes out and the competitiveness or whatever that we can do at a fairly good professional level came out, and so it was a good vehicle for all that, like whatever. And then the design crew went bananas with it in a wonderful way. They had because they would get to play large versions of games, so they built, I think, about 6 foot, maybe 7 foot tall version of the Atari joystick, of the original Atari joystick. And then they built an equally large version of the original Nintendo controller. And they get people to play and had to hammer down the buttons of jump, and then they direction, and they jump. And like they made a, do you remember Game and Watch, the little kind of like LCD little games that they were like, Super Mario was the first one, and they were like this tiny, it really was before many of your time, but they were like, and there was a set number of movements that the electric current would fill in the ink so you'd see where you were. But they had this really sweet thing that they had a particular kind of visual style, but also when you turn them on, the current would sweep through the whole thing, and everything that could light up did light up just for a second. And so just as the machine started. So they did a software version of it, but just purely for the sheer pleasure of it. When you started it, everything lit up. Wow. And it was just a tiny joke for anyone who remembers the original machines, that all the cells would light up just for a second and then the game would start properly. And they did a game, and it was like there was like 4 places you could be to catch potatoes, because I'm Irish, so therefore potatoes. And it's called Dara's Buttery Spuds, and it was this. There's a guy called Rob Sedgbery who does all these kind of like online, these kind of events where you can go into a room and you open up your phone to a thing, and then suddenly you're all playing the same game on the phone within his stuff, and he does all these little miraculous things where you can play all these games where you all together control something, and it so as a crowd on one side of the room. Yeah, a bit like Pong, and he's done even more sophisticated kind of like race games and things where one side of the room will compete against the other side of the room on an instantaneous democratic vote about whether they should go left or right, and so the people get really angry.
Did he invent the Brexit game, or was that real democracy?
No, genuinely, that that one's been tracked back a lot further than that. The Devil's Ratio, as it's known now in British politics.
Have you ever played Space Team? By the way,
no. What's Space Team?
Space Team is a game that you play on the cell phone in a group, and so the makers of this game, the creators of this game, noticed that when you look at a Star Trek episode and something goes wrong with the ship, they all shout controls to each other, like put stabilizers on 5. And so they were wondering, why don't they have their own controls? Why do they always have to command other people? And they turned it into a game. So every phone has certain controls, and they are like engines and do your taxes and things like that.
Yes.
And then you get things that have to be done. Like, for example, suddenly my phone will tell me stabilizers have to be put at 4, but I don't have it on my phone, so I have to shout it to other people.
Okay.
And then you just keep shouting, and you go through several levels, and they become more and more difficult as you play. Yeah,
it's harder than you think.
A relationship test like other games.
Well, there's the cooking one.
Overcooked. Yeah,
that's a proper relationship test. Whatever.
Yeah.
And keep talking and nobody
explodes.
Yeah.
Like the overcooking one. Like you start with a cutesy little cooking simulator, and 5 minutes later you're shouting, "Where is my fish? Where are my fishes? You've dropped the fishes!" it's amazing. Always, what I think is fascinating about games is people like it's a bigger industry than everything you know together. Absolutely. And people treat it like it's still some kind of fucking like for
14-year-old
nerds.
in a bedroom.
Like,
yeah, I know.
You look at Premier League football. That's nothing compared to Call of Duty. That's like one day of Call of Duty.
Watch out, Arsenal fan here. So
sorry. I'm just saying, like the vast schism between those industries is still baffling.
It is. There was a time where I used to host the BAFTA Video Game Awards, which they'd set up, and it was always a smaller event, the BAFTA Video Games, than the other game awards, than the movie awards. Partly because they. There aren't stars as such, so they can't have photographs of people arriving and leaving the event and all that kind of like the glamour parts of it all. But then for many years, I would do interviews as part of the job. I would go on shows and go, yes, well, tonight we've got the awards coming up. And there was a point where it was like, oh, but do you not find that people sitting in rooms all hours of the day, blah blah blah? And I said, well, I suppose it's a bit like the West. Have you seen the West Wing? And they said, yeah. I said, did you not like sit down in a room to watch it then? And like they were like, oh yeah, well, fair point. But then one of the years I would interview on Sky about it, and some guy, the anchor goes, do you know what always intrigues me about games? I'm expecting like a Pac-Man type question from the guy, and he goes, because often I'm online and I'll be trying to get my load up correct, but then I'll get shot immediately because somebody will have and you're going, oh, you've actually played this. This is becoming you're finally registering the fact that we all have done this. We've all done some form of this on your phone.
But it's this weirdness that when you're not into sports, you know it exists. When you're not into movies, you know it exists. And I remember I did an item on a TV show here in Belgium talking about the new Call of Duty. I think it was Black Ops 2, so a few years ago. New Call of Duty came out, and I had been filming the waiting line and the people who were really at midnight waiting there. So I talked about this item, and across the table were two Belgian celebrities, both in their 50s. And I talk about this, and one of them says, my God, thousands of people were waiting in line at midnight, and I had no idea this exists. And the other one says, I've played all Call of Duty, I've played everything in the Call of Duty franchise. And before they said it, it could have been the other way around. I had no idea of knowing, does he know nothing about it, or is he really into it? And that's so weird, I think. And that's probably why on linear television, where everything has to be for everybody these days, and it's so difficult to get this gaming topic.
I would sell a kidney lever if we could make Lieven Scheire go 8-bit. Like I would sell, not my kidney, but I would sell one.
Honestly, the format's there, lads. It really works. It really works as a thing. I mean, we kind of there was a point where it was Dave's biggest show, and then the production reasons it slipped away. We found out we had to get a bad studio, and we suddenly didn't have crowds in. It really works. You have people joking and laughing, and then what you do is you do 5 games, usually retro games, but actually people can pick in anything. You can play football, and it's it's like watch anything. You actually get it. It's compelling just to watch the game to see who wins this particular game, like whatever. So I think the format is sitting there waiting for somebody to do it in other places, because
let's do it. We're gonna watch the show, and we're gonna try to take it to the networks.
Nick it. We'll pay the 2 guys whose show it was, like whatever. I was maybe the host.
What I really liked about the show, like you said, you made this huge Atari controller, is the fact that you can go Top Gear with these games. Like they play around with the cars, and the gaming stories and memes and running jokes have so much to work with to just make it a bit more fun out of the screen too.
Look, it is increasingly a common language that people have, and they understand it, like whatever. I mean, and it is a thing that you'd even approach it on stage nervously because you think you're going to lose people. But no, I mean, my jump, crouch, touch routine. People got it. People got what the hell I was talking about, like whatever. That was
even the snake bit. People went like, "That it just sounds fun." Someone calling snake.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. What are you gonna do?
Let's just end at the fact that we will watch Dara Goes 8-bit and try to sell it to Belgian and Dutch networks. That would be great.
Honestly, look. The other thing I was always amazed by that nobody else did stargazing, nobody else did live astronomy, because that did very, very well for us for a long time. And should work. I mean, but yeah, it's even in Britain, which used to be really good, it's more difficult to get. things involving fighting robots or looking at the stars or any of these other nerdy programs I've done to get them away. It's we had a bit of a golden thing about 15 years ago. I presume it'll dip around again, but it's not we're not in a golden era now in terms of science broadcasting.
I hope it's just shifting platforms, because just linear channel TV is becoming very afraid of everything. It has to be broad and easy, and so I hope that science and robotics. It's already now on YouTube. We were talking about Michael Reeves' last podcast, who has built a Spot robot, like the Boston Dynamics Spot robot dog.
Oh yeah.
And he has equipped it so that now it becomes a beer-peeing dog. So on YouTube, these robotics and science things are huge. On linear television, we're losing them. Let's hope that maybe Netflix or another streaming service will discover it.
We'll resume it. Yeah, absolutely.
And you briefly mentioned Robot Wars there, one of the other very geeky, nerdy shows that we didn't mention in this podcast. So you've done gaming on TV, robotics on TV, mathematics on TV. You did Science Club, you do astronomy. We're a bit jealous, but we'll just try to nick all the formats and make them.
Dude, look, honestly, we discovered the Science Club, which was just a magazine type show stuff, which is great fun to do, but again, could never quite find. They were never sure how to do it. That turned up in Germany at some stage in its look and feel, in a really kind of, hang on, that's suspiciously like our set, and there are four people standing around, and you're going, right, I don't remember getting any contact from them about that. Like, but listen, it's always for the good of sorting this out. I mean, it was for a long time, the BBC was exemplary in how they did this, and they've just reshaped the BBC in a way that makes it more difficult to get these things away. So I worry that we're not going to be able to be quite as smug about how good things are here for a long time.
Good. We're gonna end it there. Thank you.
That seems an unfortunate tone to end it on, given that it's been a genuinely very, very funny and entertaining conversation. Thank you all very much. It's grand. Look, we're all doing the thing. We're all enthusiastic about it. That will rub off. That's the key thing. As long as we talk our own enthusiasm. Before you do the wrap, thank you all very much, and good luck with the application for space.
Thank you. Thank you for being here.
The most
too.
exciting thing. It's like, that's gonna be amazing. And good luck to the rest of you. Sorry, but an absolute pleasure.
Okay, so everybody can find your books, your children's books, your stand-up shows everywhere on your website, and we really hope to see you soon live here in Belgium or in Holland. Thank you so much for being on the show, Dara Ó Briain.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
And that was our podcast with special guest Dara Ó Briain. I just wanted to add that the show notes with all the links to the things we have been talking about can be found at podcast.nerdland.be. All of our other podcasts have been in Dutch up until now, I'm afraid. But maybe we'll be back with more English spoken podcasts soon.